Nigeria's central bank said it had cleared the entire backlog of verified claims owed to foreign airlines whose payments had been blocked in the country. However, Airline Association IATA said another $700 million of owed money remained in Nigerian banks. Are they essentially saying the same thing in different ways, or is the use of the word verified the simple differentiator in this conversation? Joining me for more on this is Sean Mendes, International Aviation Consultant. Thank you, Sean, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's look at what's happening in the aviation sector, as you already know, looking at the payment that was made by CBN and all of that. So from the last payment by CBN to foreign airlines, how much do you think, the country actually owes in total? How much does the country owe foreign airlines in total?
Well, the exact figure is very hard to put a finger on because it's constantly changing. There are new ticket sales happening every day. So every time there is a payment, even if there's one payment a month, the amount of that payment needs to be sufficient to not just cover the ongoing sales, but also to make a dent into the past sales. Historically, for the last few years, we've seen that the number owed by Nigeria to foreign airlines tends to be in the range of about $700 to $800 million. So even though CBN has processed $60-something million this week and, I think $130-something million in the last couple of months, that in reality is just keeping pace with the actual ongoing sales of tickets over the peak period, rather than actually making a dent into the past due arrears. So it's the first steps, but I think there is a very long way to go before this issue is even close to being resolved.
All right, but looking at what, the CBN said in its statement, it was saying that it had cleared the verified, backlog. What does that mean? Looking at that, that sounded like, okay, we've cleared everything. I mean, everything that's been verified has been cleared.
I think the CBN and the Nigerian government in general is suffering from a serious lack of credibility on this issue. We've seen for the last 5 years probably, all sorts of promises and statements that, oh, this will be done by the end of the month, oh, we've done this, oh, but really we didn't, and so forth. So I take a lot of it with a pinch of salt. And yes, I think the reality is that it comes down to semantics. What is the meaning of verified? Who is doing the verification? Where is this process being held up? Is it being held up at CBN? Is it being held up with commercial banks who, obviously are pushing it to CBN for the approvals? Is it being held up with the airlines in terms of their documentation? But, my personal experience having run an airline and trying to get money out of Nigeria is that the delays usually tend to occur at the CBN level. CBN does not necessarily make the required amounts of Forex available at the appropriate time to the commercial banks, and consequently, the airlines are unable to access.
All right, so where does this actually leave us, and what is a more sustainable way to settle this so, we do not lose investors, people who would like to come do business in Nigeria because Nigeria has the market?
Well, I think Nigeria will be lost as a result of this. If you look in terms of the numbers of major African markets and the international travel recovery since COVID, Nigeria and South Africa are the two major markets which are still lagging 2019 figures, while the majority of Africa has actually exceeded figures. So, I think the Nigerian economy in general has been weak, but the aviation sector in particular, because of this problem of accessing foreign exchange, has seen airlines pull out of the market, airlines reduce service in the market, and airlines not expand in the market. So, you're seeing that with foreign airlines, but also with domestic airlines, because domestic airlines don't have access to the capital they require to make capital investments, to buy planes rather than relying on wet leases and short-term solutions rather than actual investments. So yes, I think the damage has already been done to Nigeria, and I think as far as Nigeria goes, there needs to be a serious change in the approach to how the aviation industry in general, not just airlines, but maintenance facilities, fuel suppliers, etc., are prioritized in terms of foreign exchange allocation in order to make sure that aviation is able to run smoothly.
Absolutely. Well, it is not only foreign airlines that need dollars, just like you've also said. Now, the local airlines, they also need dollars, seeing that the sector is highly dollarized. So talk to us. What has been your experience so far, trying to access Forex for your business?
Forex in Nigeria has been a challenge. This is not a recent thing. This has been the case for, well, periodically over decades, but more acutely in the last, say, 5, 6, 7 years. The reality is every airline that's operating in Nigeria is selling their tickets in naira. And obviously, by treaty, the foreign airlines are entitled to change that back into hard currency to return it to the country where they're operating from. The problem is, due to the Forex shortages in Nigeria, this has not always been able to be settled promptly. And because of the constantly changing and in recent times devaluing exchange rates in Nigeria, the value of those naira, what was worth $5 million 2 years ago is worth $1 and $2 million today. And airlines are winding up having to take a lot of losses from this.
Could that be the reason we are seeing a disparity between what the CBN had said it is paid and what IATA is saying? Maybe it's some of consideration, maybe airlines saying, you know what, we have to probably hedge against devaluation and peg this particular ticket at this particular amount. Is that what's happening?
It's quite possible. The unfortunate thing is that CBN is not very transparent in explaining these things. They'll put out these statements saying, we have released this and we have cleared the backlog, and you can ask them to see the workings, but they are in all likelihood not going to release them, even to the people who have who have received that Forex. They will be told that this is how much you're getting. So there's definitely a difference in position between what the airlines think they are owed and what CBN thinks they are owed. How they've reached that difference in position, I think, is a formula that the CBN in particular, who have made the statement, are best placed to explain. But as far as IATA and the airlines are concerned, and I've spoken to multiple airlines in the last few days, since this statement has come out, and every one of them is like, well, if they've cleared the entire backlog, that doesn't include the X million dollars that we have sitting over there. So I'll definitely tell you that airlines do not believe this has been cleared. IATA doesn't believe this has been cleared, and I think the CBN is definitely unique in their belief that this matter is now resolved.
I like the way you put it. The CBN is unique in its belief that it is resolved. But still talking about Nigeria's aviation industry being highly dollarized, and we also know that does not serve anyone. But first, let me get your thoughts on why this is so. Why is it so dollarized, and what are your recommendations for de-dollarizing the aviation sector in Nigeria? If I can have that in a minute, I'll be grateful.
Well, aviation is a global business, and as a result, pretty much every cost in aviation is pegged to hard currency. There's very limited costs that you can de-dollarize, and those would be your local costs, like potentially labor and other activities. Even if you set up, say, a maintenance organization in Nigeria, you're still going to need to buy those spare parts from Airbus or Boeing or Embraer, and that's going to be in dollars. Even if you set up refineries in Nigeria, oil is a global commodity. You're not going to get it without some sort of subsidy, and we've seen how fuel subsidies have gone in Nigeria in the past. So I think there's a limit to how much you can de-dollarize the aviation sector without some sort of subsidies. And as a result, I think the solution is not going to be in de-dollarization. Certainly de-dollarize as much as you can. Don't rely on expat labor. Train more pilots, engineers, things like that locally, so you're not having to bring in foreigners and pay them in dollars. But it's never going to be an industry that you can go completely indigenous with, simply because of the global nature of it and the need to rely on supply chains that span the continents.
Thank you so much, Sean Mendes, for your time on the show today.
Thank you.